a life of mindlessness or a life devoid of mindfulness is a wasted life.
The interesting thing is that it's so easy to be mindful. Now, mindfulness, as I study it, is the very simple process of noticing new things. And it's experienced as total engagement. It feels good, and all of this research shows that it's good for us. It makes us healthier, happier. We actually live longer.
Does that mean, Dr. Langer, if you stop noticing, you're in the dying process?
I think so, yes, that the system starts turning itself off.
You're like the Oracle in the Matrix.
I'm Sunny Singh. I'm here with my friend Thomas Power. And each week we talk to a very interesting person who has a unique perspective on well-being and holistic well-being. Today, our guest is Dr. Ellen Langer. Dr. Ellen Langer is a Harvard professor, and she spent the last 40 years studying mindfulness and its impact on our daily lives. I would love to kind of really educate and make our users aware of what is mindfulness and why are we taught mindlessness, because I find that highly intriguing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Most people don't realize it, but virtually all of us are mindless almost all the time. We're simply not there. We're on automatic pilot, acting like robots. And in that state of mind, we're not enjoying living, basically. The system is essentially turned off. We're not there to be able to take advantage of opportunities that are right in front of us or to avert dangers. And the interesting thing is that it's so easy to be mindful. Now, mindfulness, as I study it, is the very simple process of noticing new things. And as you notice new things, that puts you in the present, makes you aware of context, aware that you didn't know what was before, so your attention naturally goes to it. And it's experienced as total engagement. So it feels good, and all of this research shows that it's good for us. It makes us healthier, happier, we actually live longer, and so on. Now, the why we're so mindless, for me, I truly believe that the biggest culprits are schools. Schools teach us to look for single answers to things, to understand facts in an absolute way. And they don't teach us, most people don't realize, is that uncertainty is the rule, not the exception. Everything is always changing. Everything looks different from different perspectives. So as soon as we think we know, we're actually being mindless. So let me ask you, Thomas, how much is 1 and 1?
2.
Okay, you see now, but he knew it was a trick question because why would I be asking him? But, he still couldn't give you another answer. Well, it turns out 1 and 1 is not always 2. If you add one cloud to one cloud, 1 plus 1 is 1. You add 1 wad of chewing gum to 1 wad of chewing gum, 1 plus 1 is 1. 1 pile of laundry to 1 pile of laundry. In fact, in the real world, 1 plus 1 probably doesn't equal 2 as or more often as it does. But once we think we know, we don't pay attention. So the bottommost line to all of this is that we need to have a healthier respect for uncertainty. And when we're uncertain, you tune in.
So the state of mindfulness, or being in the state of mindfulness, helps the aging process. Well, I would like to think that it helps everything, being in the now, right? And being present.
Yes.
Very difficult to do, very easy to say. But let's talk about aging and mindfulness. How do you see them relating and saying mindfulness, state of mindfulness assists the aging process?
The first thing is we have these mindless notions of what it means to age. So many people mistakenly think that it's a time only of loss, and thereby set their expectations very low and so on. Then we did lots of other studies with old people where we taught them to be mindful, to actively notice. And what happened, and across 3 different studies, we found that they live longer. So you can surmise, we've done lots of new research on different diseases, but I think it's not a big leap that if they're living longer, then we can say that they were healthier, and that mindfulness leads us to be healthier.
Does that mean?
But regardless of that, when you're mindful, you're feeling alive. So it's not only that it's likely to add more years to your life, more important from my perspective, it's adding more life to your years.
Does that mean, Dr. Langer, if you stop noticing, you're in the dying process?
I think so, yes, that the system starts turning itself off. Yes.
Wow.
I'm just almost building a parallel between certain words that are coming to my mind, Dr. Langer, and mindfulness. So we were building a relation or correlation between uncertainty and mindfulness. And then the next
Yeah.
word that comes to me is insecurity, right?
Well, that's right. So that if you think that you're supposed to know, then that uncertainty makes you feel insecure, afraid you're going to be found out, for instance. But when you realize that you can't know for sure, then uncertainty is not scary. In fact, it makes you more curious.
Getting into a mindful state through whatever practices and whatever process one uses, is it fair to say that people who are in a mindful state can deal with insecurity effectively and are more secure in
Easily.
the being?
Yes. No, easily, because one of the things you come to see is that outcomes are in our heads. They're not in events. Events are neither good nor bad. They're just events. And then we understand them one way or the other. The more mindful you are, the more choices you have. And it helps relationships. So let's say, for instance, you don't like me because you see me as gullible. But if you are mindful and you realize from my perspective, I'm being trusting. I see you as inconsistent, but from your perspective, you're being flexible. And so when it turns out, for each and every negative ascription we have for somebody's behavior, there's an equally strong but oppositely valenced alternative, a positive for everyone negative. So, we were together, Sonny, and you're driving me crazy because you're so, I don't know, what do we want to make you?
He does. He does
We'll
do
just
that
keep we'll keep
sometimes.
him we'll keep him as inconsistent. That once I recognize why you're doing what you're doing from your perspective, now I embrace you rather than try to distance myself. So it's very good for relationships. It's very good for everything. So you feel good. Not only that, but as you're being more mindful in this, you know, lit up state, so to speak, other people find you more charismatic, attractive, and trustworthy.
When we go into a mindless state or a meditative state or a clear state, we become mindless. That can be a state of relaxation. But if we're
Well,
noticing that we're relaxing or going mindless, then we're mindfully meditating. Is that right? Have I?
potentially, I like to just leave sort of meditation as its own thing, separate way to become more mindful. That, it's very different from what I'm saying, because when you meditate, you separate yourself from the world. You typically will have your eyes closed and you repeat something over and over again. So when a thought comes to mind and you realize it, you go back to your mantra as a way of teaching you that that thought is just a thought. It doesn't have to control you. For us, you're very much in the world, actively noticing. And when you have that thought, don't ignore it. Take it apart. Turn it upside down. How is it an advantage? When can it work? When is it a disadvantage? So on and so forth. And then, that if you think this thing, this is the way I tell people to deal with stress, is to realize that stress is a function not of events, but the view you take of events. So if you open it up and take a positive view, you're not going to be stressed. So if you say, here's this thing that you're scared about, give yourself 3 reasons why it might not even happen. So now you thought it was necessarily going to happen. Now maybe it's not. You immediately feel a little better. Let's assume, though, that it is going to happen. What are some advantages? Give 3, 5 reasons why it's actually a good thing. So, over time, you've gone from, oh my God, what's going to happen to me if this thing happens, to this thing may or may not happen. And if it happens, look, here'll be the good things, bad things, So we're talking, and let's say that this is the first podcast that I've done, and I'm afraid there's going to be noise or my internet is going to go out, which to me, if the internet goes out, we've had a lovely time. That we'll either schedule something again or I'll go about doing something else that's fun. That when you have the feeling that every move you make is make it or break it, it's very hard not to feel stressed. But it's not the events that are making us feel that way.
So does that mean People who love traveling, who like being on the move and seeing the world, planes, trains, automobiles, whales, penguins, polar bears, those kind of people are very mindful.
At the moment, but it's also the case that everything is new right where you are. And so one doesn't have, I mean, I do a lot of traveling, often just to give talks, but that one can be in one place and notice the ways, in fact, today looks, feels, and is different. If for no other reason, you're a day older, a day more used to whatever the environment had before. But there's always something new, new flowers, or flowers that are closer to dying or whatever. It's always changing.
I want to talk about two things:
Yeah.
love and mindfulness, and relationships and mindfulness. Now,
Yes.
a girlfriend boyfriend love is, a spouse, wife and husband love, love for your kids, love for your friends. Does being and getting to a state of mindfulness leads to a better state of loving and being in love?
Relationship, without question, that first, that when you're being more mindful, you're understanding your partner. And so, as I said before, it's not that you're inconsistent. I realize you're flexible. It's not that I'm gullible. You appreciate how trusting I am, and so on. It's not that I'm grim. It's that I'm being serious at the moment. And so, by recognizing this alternative way of understanding, then, what people think now is that when this person you love behaves, in god awful ways, that you should just take a breath and accept them for what they are. And no, because they're not what you're accepting. You're not inconsistent. And if I love you, it's not for me to say, so what, he's inconsistent, I'll just accept that. If I'm mindful, I'm understanding your behavior from your perspective. And what that means, nobody intentionally is inconsistent, prejudiced, awkward, and so on. What are they being from their perspective? And then I would see you're being flexible. And then I don't have to grit my teeth to try to care about you because I value. I value you now when I see you this way. So that's one way. Another is that life just becomes more fun if both of us are mindful. That I break a vase that you liked, we're together in the scenario, and you realize, all right, so what? It was a nice vase. You enjoyed it up to today. Your life doesn't have to change because I broke this. So you respond to me in a kinder
You're
way.
like the
And
oracle in the Matrix.
okay, good.
I want to clone Dr. Langer and put her avatar of her in every conversation, every meeting, anybody else, anywhere in the world.
Yes, that's good feedback.
All right, I like that.
In a way, I'm coming to a conclusion, Dr. Langer, that a life of mindlessness or a life devoid of mindfulness is a wasted life. It's a life that you're not
Yes,
enjoying. You're not living out of joy. It's like, what
right.
waste?
And you're oblivious to it most of the time.
You're
When
like a
when I write
zombie.
about it, I talk about people being sealed in unlived lives. And as you said originally, Sonny, it's so easy to break the seal. And that's what I've devoted myself to, seal breaking, I
It's
guess,
incredible. No, it's
Seal
for so
incredible.
breaking.
many years. Right?
It
Why
is,
not?
it is absolutely incredible. It's like, I so strongly, now even my emotions are even rising up even more that, we must teach our kids in schools how to
Yes,
live, be in a state of
yes,
mindfulness, don't waste your life, exercise your choices, understand your choices, be authentic. These all come together. It addresses love,
yeah,
relationships, living, insecurity, uncertainty. It is like it's like I can't even fathom, why are we not doing this in
yeah.
every school in the world?
So I have 6-year-old twin grandkids, and I wrote a little song for them. And I was so excited about this. I actually teach it to my graduate students. I can't sing, and I'm not going to sing it for you. Well, maybe I'll sing it for you. Just why not?
We
Or
will
I'll
make
say
that
it.
happen.
Okay, but as long as you reckon, no, but I'm very pleased, you say, and I wish schools taught this. I can't carry a tune, Or as a friend of mine says, I can carry a tune, just not very far.
But on this show, we
But why
welcome uncertain singers.
right. Why shouldn't I sing anyway? Because singing is such fun. But here it goes. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm going to do it. Everybody doesn't know something, but everyone knows something else. Everyone can't do something, but everyone can do something else. Now, the point of it should be clear that it's okay not to know. So I'm in the car with my grandkids, and one of them is whistling. And I say to him, Theo, you're such a good whistler. And you know what his brother said? Grandma, I was learning something else when Theo was learning how to whistle. And I think that's beautiful rather than, being bombarded with how good are you? You're better than he is. He's better, and so on. And if you don't know something, that makes you somehow less of a person. I think, an example I use to go back to business and away from my singing debut. I was doing this lecturing in South Africa, and I was in this very fancy hotel, and I had a few hours off, and I'm down at the pool. And I saw there was all this real estate that was part of the hotel, but that no one was using. And it occurred to me that the so-called lowly cabana boy was the only one who knew this important information. And if we didn't deal with everybody in this hierarchy, if we realize that everybody knows something useful and important, the bottom line for the hotel, I think, would have increased substantially.
Absolutely right.
So there you have it.
Now, what about mistakes, Dr. Langer? You talk about...
Yeah. Is there a way we can edit this to take out my singing
No
debut?
way. There's no way it's going to happen. We are going to keep that in. So that was the most endearing moment of the conversation.
Okay.
And if you want, everybody doesn't know something, but everyone knows something else. Everyone can do something, but everyone can do something else. There we go. You see, we even have the words.
That's right.
Almost.
What about
everyone can't?
What about mistakes, Dr. Langer? Your research indicates that
mistakes are the same thing.
Tell us about mistakes.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, the only way you can make a mistake is if you have a rigid plan. If you have a maybe this way, maybe that way, it would be much harder to deviate from it. If you have it has to be this way, then it's very easy to deviate. So a mistake actually is a good thing because it tells you that you've been mindless. Right? You can get the right answer for the wrong reason, mindlessly. And then you never know that it could have been otherwise. So we an involved study too involved to describe now, but we cleverly get people to make a mistake. But we have told one of the groups, should you find that you make a mistake, incorporate the mistake in what you're doing and go forward, don't go back. And when we do that, those people come up with the best products. What happens, this is kind of interesting to me at least, that you make a decision. And to make a decision means there has to be uncertainty. If there's no uncertainty, there's no decision, right? The moment you make a decision, most people act like that's the only way it could be. They forget all of that uncertainty. If we could just remember that we weren't sure, then when things turn out otherwise, it's clear that there are opportunities.
So today I will implore and request our listeners to this call to action. And that is of experiencing and living mindful optimism. If we are living in very uncertain times with the pandemic, there's a lot of stress and nervousness around us. But when you encounter such a situation or a thought, think of not what will go wrong, but what will not go wrong and why will it not go wrong. And that's the concept of mindful optimism. And Dr. Langer, I would like you to elaborate on that also and show how somebody in today itself can live mindful optimism.
All right. Well, many people, in contrast to what you're saying, Sonny, are defensive pessimists. And what that means is that they are expecting the worst, but hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. And that seems to me a losing strategy because, as I've said before, that events, things that happen are neither good nor bad. It's the way we understand them. And if you're defensively pessimistic, so you're expecting bad things, you're going to see bad things. It doesn't help your health or your general well-being. But there's another part of that, which is the expecting the worst, but hoping for the best. Hope. I realized when I started to write about this, hope sounds like a good thing. There are so many things that I think the culture has inside out, or I at least had them inside out. Hope turns out, in my mind, not to be a good thing. Well, why, you might say? Because hoping has built into it an expectation of failure. You don't wake up in the morning to go into the kitchen to have coffee hoping that you'll be able to have a cup of coffee. You just assume you'll be able to have a cup of coffee. So hope gets you ready for, well, it's going to be a failure. So all these concerns with how things aren't going to work lead a person to be stressed. Stress makes you less healthy, so that if something should happen, you're less able to deal with it. So as the alternative to this, I suggest instead of this defensive pessimism, we should adopt a mindful optimism, which is you make a plan for yourself. So you know that during the pandemic, you should do a lot of hand washing, you should wear a mask, you should not be certainly unmasked among lots of people, strangers, and so on. Whatever your plan is, so then you just go about living. And what happens as you go about living and noticing new things and being in the moment, as you say, Sonny, that you're building up your resources so that even if something does happen, you're better able to handle it. And if nothing happens, clearly, that's what you want. Well, if you were defensively pessimistic and nothing happens, look at all that time you've wasted being miserable and scared. So the bottommost line to all of it is that how we feel is a function of our thoughts, and our thoughts are under our control. And if we assume that we can see the beauty in whatever exists, that's going to leave us feeling sunny. And if we want to worry that the sun is going to stop shining, we're going to be miserable. Both are possible. Only one is an effective strategy, in my view.
Awesome advice. Seize the day, live the day, make it beautiful. Dr. Langer, thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was nice talking to both of you.
Thank you, Dr. Langer.
Pleasure talking to you.
And if you do any editing, get rid of my singing. I can't believe I did that.
No way.
Why are we getting rid of that?
We're going to put music with it. We're going to think up some music with it.
Everybody doesn't know something, but everyone knows something else. Everyone can't do something, but everyone can do something else. That's right. All right, guys. It was wonderful talking to all of you. Stay healthy, stay well, safe, and
You too.
goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. Langer.